The first anti-pattern is the no well-defined services. To understand this anti-pattern, let's go back to the architecture process we discussed at the beginning of this course. As you probably remember, we have defined 3 steps that are microservices related, and these are component mapping, selecting the technology stack, and designing the architecture. And I want to focus on the component mapping stage. We have split this step into 2 stages. Mapping, which is where we define the actual mapping of the components and decide on what each service should do, and communication patterns, which defines how the services communicate with each other. And again, I want to focus on the mapping. And here is what we said about the mapping. This is the single most important step in the whole process, and it determines how the system will look like on the long run. In addition, once set, the mapping is not easy to change. In other words, once we define what are the components that are part of the system and what is the role of each one, it's not easy to change this. So now that we remember how important it is to conduct a thorough mapping, let's see what happens when we don't do that. Negligent mapping results in bloated services. If we don't define well-bounded services with clear definition of what inside and what outside the service, we will end up with huge services where each one encapsulates loosely related logic, and what even worse, it will keep growing. Dependent functionality will get added continuously, and somewhere later on the road, we will end up with a mini monolith. I know this term sounds a bit funny, but this is exactly what's going to happen to such services. If we don't draw a clear line on what's in and what's out, more and more logic will creep its way inside and the service will grow uncontrollably. If the mapping is done correctly, there are clear guidelines where this logic should reside, and it's easy to find out whether it should be inside the service or part of other ones. So make sure the component mapping is thorough and methodical, and never start developing without clear mapping of the services.